I left off about a week ago. I mocked everything up and I got this link on 2 jack stands and lined it up with the rear end, and that gave me a general idea of where the lower link mount goes on the outside of the frame on that side. Before, I didn't really have an idea of where this would be, so I thought it would be sort of on the other side of this door, like around that area. I'm gonna do my best to film this with one hand, but bolt right here that goes to this cross member lines up with this bolt that goes on the bottom of the frame, so that would go right here. I can't put it in because this tube is in the way. I'll have to trim out some of this mount, but after figuring that out, I realized that this bolt right here actually has to go through this little like weld washer thing on both sides. I sort of put that bolt a little bit too low. I'm gonna have to take these 3 bolts out, the one behind the body mount, one right here, and one right here. And I don't need to move this bolt location, which is the big bolt that goes to the upper links. But once these bolts are out, I'll trim this piece out to fit under the tube, and then I'll have this bolt that has no nut on it, go through that hole, and that'll give me the spot where this can drill through. And once I drill this hole, I can line this bolt and this bolt up together, and it'll give me these last 2 bolt locations. Before I do all that, I'm gonna actually weld up all the bolt holes that I messed up, so there's not any holes in my frame that are unnecessary. Alright, so I moved one link up here and the rear end up here. I had to put a new thing of cardboard down because my garage flooded from the rain, and luckily not too much stuff was touching the ground and it was on jack stands, so, but it still sucks having to like lay down in like wet cardboard and stuff. Anyways, I'm gonna go get this wishbone off and continue on. Alright guys, so I got both lower link mounts on. I had to trim a decent bit out from this side, and then that side wasn't as bad. But yeah, the fitment on it isn't 100%. I don't know if it's supposed to be like this, but there's just a little gap. This little washer is like a millimeter or whatever away from the frame. Again, I do plan on welding this in, so I'm not so concerned with making it perfect. Since I have a cage, it might have pulled the frame certain ways, and it might have separated it by like, let's just say 1/8 of an inch, and that is enough to just throw off all the stock bolt locations. That may seem like a bigger gap than it is. It's not big. There's probably a few millimeters, like a millimeter or so, between this upper piece and the frame, so it's not like it's completely off or something. This side fits pretty good too. You can see what I was talking about, how that little nut up there kind of sticks out a little bit, so it looks like there's a bigger gap here, but it's really just supposed to be like that. Welded up all the holes and then grinded them back down flat. And also, one thing I noticed is this hole right here is a factory hole and it lines up, but it's like a square, so I don't know. But this side doesn't have one, so I don't know if someone should normally be bolting up to that. But if you do plan on leaving this kit bolt on, I would recommend getting weld washers and reinforcing them, because something like this isn't really optimal for something as stressful as a 4-link can be on the frame. And then one other thing I'd like to mention is this kit comes with all the nuts that go to the grade 8 bolts are Stover nuts. I believe these are meant to be a one-time use nut because they come like ovaled out so that they don't back out from the bolt. But when I'm mocking this up, constantly taking bolts off and on, these will probably tend to lose their effectiveness. If you do end up getting this kit, I recommend getting a handful of 1/2-inch bolts, just for mock-up. They don't have to be grade 8 or anything, or save them for the final time you bolt this thing on. And then another thing I noticed from this kit was the shank of the bolts aren't 100% perfect. If I scoot this back over here, this is about what it'll look like when it's inside the heim joint, and you notice the shank doesn't go all the way through that hole or even through the whole heim joint. So that's not like the worst thing in the world, but it's just not proper, I guess. So if you do get this kit, it would be good if you could figure out a way to get properly shanked bolts. Alright, so now this is all on. I'm gonna mark out these holes with the Sharpie, and I'm gonna drill this one out first, and then I'll actually put on the mount that goes right here, and thread the bolt through. That'll go like right here, and it'll basically tell me the rest of the bolt holes that I need to drill out. Alright guys, just doing another update. I'm in a bit of a predicament right now because these mounts bolted on this side, and this fits perfectly. Like there's no tension whatsoever on the bolt. It fits nicely. This is completely flat to that. Like there's like not even hardly an air gap or anything. So this side isn't the same. If I turn the light on, you can see this is not lining up at all. It's like a 1/4 inch off, which I don't really understand, because if I compare where this lip is on the frame to this one, this piece and this piece are in the same exact, like 100% exact location. And then it is bolted in here, so that means that this bolted in here connects to this, which connects to this, which connects to this, which connects to everything. So the only thing that I can think of is this bar either was drilled out in the wrong spot or something, or it's like too long. I don't know. And then like it's like flat pretty much on to the mount, so I don't know. The front here is literally like perfect, and then on this side it's the same thing. Like it's just touching. It's not bolted in or anything, it's just touching and it looks perfect. So if I were to scoot this over, it would make an air gap on that side, and then also it would make this not even fit. The only thing I can think of is this tube is just a little off, or the frame needs to be pushed out that way, but That just seems so unlikely because it's the frame. I don't think my frame's bent at all, so I might just end up cutting it or something. I don't want to do that, but I can't think of any reason why this is happening, because everything in the assembly is perfect. There's no air gaps on the frame right here, even though this isn't even bolted in. This isn't bolted in and it's perfect. This isn't bolted in and it's perfect. Alright guys, I'm gonna do a quick little update here. So far, from when I left off, I fully welded everything that's on the truck so far, and I just have 6 more tubes that fill in this area. The reason I don't have them in yet is because this wishbone swings up and down, and since 2 tubes land in that area, I have to make sure that they clear, which they don't right now. So on some of these tubes you could see I marked a general idea of where I could cut them. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off by taking 2 inches off and seeing where we end up after that. Also, some of the other updates, I ordered steelite for the paint, 2 cans. Apparently each can is $40 now, so that's kind of expensive. But and then I have a couple half cans over there, but so yeah, that was like $80 for 2 cans of spray paint. But I didn't want to roll the dice on some other brand. Also, for some reason Camberg doesn't supply misalignment spacers or bolts for the ends of the links, so it was kind of hard to find, but Dirt King actually sells 3-inch stack height misalignments. When I was doing some research, I could only find 2.5 spread. I think it's around $15 for each side, so it's $30 for each uniball, which is kind of expensive, but it's actually one of the cheaper options out there. I also got some bolts. I usually get my bolts off of Fast & Nail because they have so many options. So this is a grade 8 3/4 inch bolt. But sometimes when I'm measuring the shank out, this little, on their diagrams, this little downward sloping part, I don't know if you could see that, but sometimes it misguides me a little bit because it says this will be a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of a slope right here, but in reality it's just on the lower end, so sometimes it can be hard to measure the right shank. So I might get new bolts. It's about $20 for the 3, so I'll think about it, but for now this will work. As of right now, the main thing that's holding me up from finishing mocking all these links up are the actual mounts that I have to weld on to this rear end housing. On DIYoffroad.com, they sell a bunch of CAD drawings that people can upload and sell. It's like a marketplace for CAD drawings. But a couple of the things that were on there were the Camberg 3-link for the Camberg housings. You can buy the upper 3-link mount CAD drawings on that website, as well as mounts for a 3.5 inch axle tube, and then it has all the things that are made for a 3-inch spread uniball stack. So I purchased 2 sets of CAD drawing files, one being the upper 3-link and then the outer link tabs, and then I sent them off to a CNC plasma cutting business that's online, and it was about $200, and I'm just waiting on those. I sent them in today, and I should get the parts within probably a week and a half maybe. And it was pretty cool. You could choose if you want pickled and oiled, or even you can order chromoly. Everything should be 3/16. thickness. Once I get all of that, I'll be able to measure where the link mounts have to sit for this axle, and then I'll be able to weld those on, cycle the rear end and everything, and see how everything works. As of right now, I have not welded any of the link mounts on or anything, because I'm waiting for all that stuff to be mocked up and I could cycle it before I weld anything. What I'm going to be doing today is just taking about 2 inches off some of the tubes that land in these pockets. I would like to weld those on today, hopefully. And I could also just cycle the wishbone by itself and see if those tubes clear. So I also have purchased pretty much everything for the fuel setup, and I'll probably make a separate video explaining some of the things I learned about fuel setups, because there's hardly any information on at least just YouTube about fuel cells and AN lines and fuel pumps and just the overall setup. So I'll probably be doing a little video describing some of the things that you have to think about when doing your fuel setup. Okay guys, so it's been probably about 5 minutes, and you can see those tubes in here right now. I took off 2 inches from it, and this is the location it'll pretty much be in, and it looks like it's almost touching, but it's pretty much perfectly in there. What I'm gonna end up doing is probably go from this line to the top of there and create like a 45-degree angle on there or something. Okay, so I got all the tubes in. I just decided to cut them out like a little angle. And I might plate them in later on, but they fit now with the mounts on both sides. This one looks tight, but it's not touching. I was also taking apart the fuel system recently, and I believe they only call these filters, but I think this is a filter regulator for this car. So basically, fuel will come in on this side, which faces the rear of the truck, and then it will get put down to 60 psi, so all the spare fuel will go out of here, and then this will go to the engine. What I have here is a AN, I think this is like 3/16 or something. I don't remember the fitting size, but it's the same size as this, but for some reason the lock is really high up, so I don't know if this will work or not, because the little locking nub right here is lower down. But might try this and see if it works. And where this filter actually sits is a little bit, like basically right under the passenger. There's a bolt right next to the transfer case, and it'll be on the other side of the frame right here. Some Rangers don't have returnless setup, and then some Rangers also run at different fuel pressures, so this doesn't apply to everyone, but for this year truck, which is a 2000 4x4 4-liter, it runs at like 60 psi, has a returnless setup. So when I get my Corvette fuel filter regulator, this is pretty much the same thing, so I'll be able to just hopefully just adapt the stock fuel line to this AN, and everything will hopefully work right. Okay, so here's where the stock filter regulator goes. It bolts right through there, and then it attaches with these little clips, so these white things will go all the way through the holes in the bottom around this little nub that's on the stock one. It's right there, and it'll hold it in. And I want to try to put that in there, but I'm not sure. So it looks like with the clip on that it won't work.